Hi, my name is Francisco, and in this video I will try explain the topic of restrictive clauses, relative and non-restrictive clauses. Subject relative pronouns. What are the subject relative pronouns? Pronouns. Subject relative pronouns refer to subject mentioned earlier who living things, which non-living things, that both living and non-living things. The relative pronoun who, which, that come as subject of the relative clauses. So this is a complete sentences. Subject relative clauses provide essential information about the noun it modifies. The subject relative clauses is this embed inserted with a sentences after now it modifies. Example: the Bucks fans waited online for 2 hours submitting players. But the bodies work basketball fans is my subject, and I would like to restrict this subject to certain fans. So who do I do that? Will I go to insert embed my subject restrictive relative clause? Here add essential information um, to the sentences and make a subject restrictive relative clauses. So after I talked about it for a little bit, came up with this way we're watching the game. So now we have this implement version. The basketball fans who were watching the game waited in line for 2 hours to meet the players. We are going to insert an implement with subject restrictive relative clause. Here add essential information to the sentences and make subject. So after I talk about it for a little bit, came up with this who were watching the game. So now we have this environment version. Environment version. The basketball fans were who were watching the game waited in line for 2 hours. So met the players. So let's look at more examples regarding the subject restrictive relative clauses. You have to bear in mind that information indicating your subject essentially is information identify subject essentially. People that exercise takes care of their health. People which exercise take care of their health. The verb in the relative clause agrees with the noun that relative pronoun who, which, that modifies. Global warming is something that affects the environment. Global warming is essentially that affect the environment. Let's talk about non-restrictive subject relative clauses. How everything the different non-restrictive clauses is the one which is envelopment restricted quite as sentences. Non-restrictive relative clauses is envelopment inserted within a sentences after the noun is modified. However, its information is not essentially to what is known. For example, Bill Gates is the founder of Microsoft. This one is on can stand alone. Now we can introduce additional information about Bill Gates, which does not have to restrict our renown. Again, science we try to modify the subject. The restricted clauses will come writing after the subject. We can add something like this: who is an American billionaire? So you environment version. Bill Gates, who is American billionaire, is the founder of Microsoft. Example, no restricted subject relative clauses. Example, Bill Gates, who as American billionaire is the founder Microsoft. You notice it? I might singly pauses in my speech because that who we offered our non-restricted subject relative clauses. In Spain, in writing, we show that by become so right after my subject Bill Gates. I paused, comma, to let me read and know that I am gonna introduce. Finally, let's summarize the difference between. So restrictive relative clauses keep in mind that they have to provide essential information to the who or no prices or the subject that you're training so modified try. Treaty no commas often rest the restrictive relative subject plus you can internally use which on that the full people and you can use which for things rather than no restrictive um, relative subject. Clauses they don't provision essential information to the know they modify pronoun its use submitting extra information we after the now restricted relative subject clauses while commas in writing especially pauses and lower speech and speaking we can never to use it a non-restricted subject clauses. We can only use the who for people and rich for things. So let's look at the example here. This really is a restricted relative clauses subject. My friend is a respiratory nurse practitioner, so I'm restricting that amount of the the friends that I have, the one there at respiratory nurse practitioner has three children. I can also often and star and non-restrictive relative subject clauses be saying the same thing often while my friends who is a respiratory nurse practitioner has three children as you notice a singularity pauses to introduce to comma and the ten I may pitch singly who's so who's that I'm gonna talk about now relative subject a clause. The first two sentences carry two different meanings. This only am who's selecting, limiting, resting my friends who is a respected nurse out of all friends that I have had three children. In no restrictive relative subject are merely saying my friend. Who is my friend? Who is the why? A respected nurse practitioner has three children. My focus is on my friend have in three children. The end. Muchas gracias.